Dr. Ashok Kumar is Associate Professor of Political Economy at Birkbeck University.
The U.S. prides itself as a sort of liberal democracy, and what that does is allow for protests to happen and never be seen as threatening to the existing system. But what you've seen now is that it's really it's become very, very clear that what was this kind of liberal democracy where people could protest and you didn't have officers come in from the federal government. You usually had local, municipal officers or state officers, not National Guard and National ICE officials, coming in and taking them in direct opposition to local government ordinances, municipalities, and state officials. So because of that, the points in which throughout American history where you've really seen the acceleration or the intensification of civil unrest is during the Civil Rights Movement, the Civil War 150 years ago, periods in which we had deep antagonisms between the local officials and federal government. And now you're seeing a rise of that again. And it's calling into question all kinds of sort of ideologies around what a liberal democracy is.
How has the official response, including public statements from President Trump, shaped public perception of these protests? And I wonder, what does it reveal about the administration's approach to civil unrest and dissent?
Well, we've never really seen, let's just say at least in the 20th century, responses from officials in the U.S. in the way that Trump and others have responded. Typically what you have is, there's a thoughts and prayers response, no matter what whatever the state's violence against civilian populations or protesters. Of course, violence has preceded the current period. People have died, police have killed civilians and protesters in the past. But typically there's a kind of time of national mourning and whatever, and the president comes out and says this wasn't good. Whereas now what you've seen is that they're all sort of blaming, like I said, J.D. Vance is blaming Vice President, the president is blaming the protesters, and there's this real hostility. And it doesn't sit very well with how the U.S. historically presents itself in opposition to places like Iran and Russia. So right now they say, oh my God, the protesters in Iran, what Iran's doing is terrible. They usually had this, at least rhetorically or discursively, a moral high ground to stand on. And what we've seen now is globally and within the U.S., a clear, pointed hypocrisy that people have pointed to, saying, you're calling out all these other countries, but you're doing the same exact thing, rounding up protesters, rounding up civilians, rounding up people, coming in sort of gung-ho, and operating almost like a police state that you accuse other people of doing. So what it's done is revealed lots of the ways that things always were, but now it's sort of become very kind of clear to people how America's operating.
Let's look ahead. I wonder what might these events mean for public trust in federal institutions like ICE and law enforcement more generally, and how could they influence political discourse, policy debates, or even electoral outcomes?
Well, the midterms are coming up, and what we know is in the polls, it's the recent poll that was done, I believe it was YouGov, that said that more Americans want to abolish ICE by a small percentage than retain it. And so it's the first time we've seen that. So we know there is a sense of people wanting more controls on immigration and against undocumented immigrants. That exists. But they've seen what ICE has done and what the Trump administration has done, and they say even people that would have been sympathetic to it have said this is taking it too far. So it's moving people to the polls where you're either with ICE entirely or abolishing this practice or the department altogether. And so it's yet to be seen, but we're going to see clearly that polarization in the polls.